It was my good fortune to meet Stephen Zarlenga in Kansas City perhaps a dozen years ago, perhaps 10 years ago, when he spoke on the important issue of monetary reform. I recall being highly moved by the depth and the urgency of the message. Well, Stephen came again to Kansas City in the year 2007, and I recall at that time how I was moved by the message, and it came to me that Stephen needed to be introduced to the Greens, and the Greens being introduced to the AMI and to Steve. I recognized then that we needed to find an opportunity for Stephen and the MII to become acquainted, to become introduced to the Green movement. Well, that opportunity came at the annual meeting of the Green Party in Reading, Pennsylvania, in the summer of the year 2007. I had the opportunity to set up a workshop on monetary reform with Stephen as the speaker. That presentation was well received, but we realized that here was a considerable educational process that was needed, and we needed to move forward in having these two groups to work together. Fortunately, there was a very creative development, positive development, in that Dee Berry was was a member of the program committee of the National Greens. So here it was possible for Steve Zarlenga and Dee Berry to work on a proposal for a monetary plank of the Green platform.
I also heard Stephen when he was in Kansas City, and I was very much enlightened and impressed with his message, and really realized that it did fit in with Green politics very neatly. I then again heard him in the 2007 National Green meeting at Reading, and worked with him to get it into the 2008 platform. His title of his talk at the meeting was Greening the Dollar, and we used that as our title for the plank that we wanted to put in the Green platform. In 2008, we wrote the plank and got it approved by in the method that was used at that time, which was to send it out to the various states and have them look it over and update it or change it or whatever. And it came back virtually unchanged and was approved to be in the 2008 platform. However, that whole platform was not accepted by the National Greens, and so we were back at square one. So for the 2010 platform, I again worked with Steve, and we repeated the proposal that we had made in 2008, almost identically, updating it slightly, and put it in the 2010 platform. But the approval process was much harder for 2010 because instead of going out as an entire document to be looked at and changed, it went out as an individual sections, and each proposal had to be approved by the entire National Committee, which is an elected group within the Greens that make the policy decisions for the Greens. When it went out, it had some criticisms, and we tried to answer those and tried to get it approved. I do want to mention the fact that we sent it, of course, through the Progressive Party of Missouri, which is what is required of all proposals in the Green National Committee. And so we got the Progressive Party of Missouri to approve the proposal and send it in. And also, when it went into the process of being accepted, There are 3 Green women that were working on it. All of us were delegates to the National Committee. Midge Potts in Springfield, Lydia Lewis in St. Louis, and myself. And we had a lot of fun getting the proposal approved. And I think it was also an educational tool for the Greens because, like the whole citizenry of the United States, people really don't understand the monetary system, who has control of it, who creates the money, and how and what happens. And so by introducing this to the Greens and letting them and introducing them and educating them on how it actually works is really good. It's really interesting that the power to create money is a very, very powerful tool in the United States, and it is in private hands. And so because it is in private hands, it is used to make money for those people who control it and also to direct the resources of this country. But unfortunately, not too many people know that. This is not discussed often, and it is almost in the shadows. It is an almost invisible system, and that's the way the people who control it want it to be. And they make it very, very difficult for people to understand it, or try to make people think that they can't understand it, but it's really much more simple than it sounds. Because this is in private hands, it is being used for things which are not to the public good. In other words, the money that makes money is used for war, for speculation, for creating all of these intricate and esoteric instruments that people don't understand, so that the bankers and the financial interests can make money on them. And what happens is that because it does make money for people who already have money, it leads to an increasing disparity of income in this country. And this leads to constant bubbles, booms and bursts, and crises that occur periodically in our financial system. We had one of these crises in 1930, the Big Depression, which I'm sure all of you are very, very familiar with and have used it as an educational tool for getting monetary reform. However, it wasn't really, although there were some good regulations put in then, it did not actually do the critical reform, which was taking the control of the creation of money from private interests and put it into government or public interest where it absolutely has to be. So once again we have reached another crisis in the financial system, which is a profound crisis, which they're now calling the Great Depression, which seems to be lingering in ways that are unacceptable to the American people. But like all crises, it also gives you an opportunity for reform. So once again, the American Monetary Institute, working with the Greens, will be able to use this crisis to educate people on what is actually necessary for true reform in the monetary system. And it is a very green idea, and it's also a very necessary idea. So I'll let Ben tell you a little bit about the green message, and then I will get back to the specifics.
Just a few words about the Green Party and green thinking. As the name implies, the Greens have a great emphasis on ecological thinking, but really more than that. The Greens emphasize a comprehensive and systems approach in dealing with the serious problems that we face today. The Greens have been very influenced by the new physics. The new physics is saying that everything is interconnected, everything is related and has an interconnection. And when we think of the social arena, this is saying then that the many problems that we face in terms of core issues are interrelated, and therefore the problems too must be seen as interconnected and interrelated. So that we need to recognize that the major problems that we are addressing in terms of the big issues that we face today are elements of an overreaching crisis. And it is in that realm that the green approach, green politics, and the powerful message of the AMI can indeed, I think, contribute a tremendous amount in dealing with this energy, with this crisis we're facing today.
How and why and where, really how, does the message of the AMI and the Greens fit, and how are they entwined? Our proposal has 3 steps, and all of them are necessary to be done almost simultaneously if we are to have the reform that is required. The first step is that both the AMI and the Greens believe that only structural change will do the trick. Structural transformation change is what is needed. We can tinker around the edges or try some more regulatory reforms, but they will only work for a while and get us back in the same situation that we're in right now. So we both believe we need structural change, and that structural change is the fact that we need to put control of the creation of money in the hands of the government and take it out of private hands. It needs to be there where it is accountable to the people through the Congress of the United States. The second plank or part of the program that is necessary, the second step, is the fact that we need to nationalize the Federal Reserve. There's been a lot of talk lately about the Federal Reserve. It needs to be made more transparent. Maybe we need a different leader. But actually what we really need to do is to nationalize it and put it under control of the government and the people through our elected representatives in Congress. They will still need the knowledge of the Federal Reserve, and it will still be there as an advisory body, but it will now be open and accountable to the people. And that is one of the second necessary step. But it is in the third plank of our platform where the Greens and the AMI are really intertwined, because this is where the money that is put into circulation by the monetary authority, which is a member, which would be a part of Congress, is spent into circulation. It would be controlled and created nationally, which is necessary to control the supply, and make it secure and control the supply of money. But it would be spent into circulation at the local and state level. And they do this by either grants or interest-free loans. And they would go to the communities to decide how they want to use this. There would probably be community banks, but not really banks, but institutions that would take this money and then distribute it to the various entities that would spend it into circulation in the community. This money would then be spent by the local community for things that are needed in the local communities, things that we need in common that we can't produce by ourselves, things like good hospitals and health care, good schools and quality education, things like parks and recreation and things that make life worth living for us. All of these have been starved for so long we don't really realize how great they would make our life if we had the money available to spend on them. And not only that, but this would create really good jobs with good salaries for local people. These are the kinds of jobs that you can't source out to China or India. They have to be done where they are. And so people would begin to make good money. They would put it into the banks and local banks, and these banks then would loan out the money to private grassroots small-scale businesses that would build good homes that are energy efficient. They would build or provide new kinds of energy sources and really help people transform into a green economy. This has always, to me, been one of the missing links in the green message, is because we have called for grassroots small-scale economics, but there's never been enough resources to make them available. This puts the money right there for people to use, and they can borrow it at a reasonable interest rate. But also, there is the idea that we will now begin to balance the resources of our country that go to public and private goods. It has been out of kink for so long and has gone for things that we see as being so destructive. They've been used for wars and speculation and creating all kinds of consumer goods that people really don't need. So then we have to create advertising agencies to create needs for people so they'll buy all these goods. So we really need to shift from a consumer society into a quality of life society. And this proposal actually makes it possible to do that. So this is another very green aspect of our proposal. Okay, one of the other important aspects that we need to look at is that it would revitalize local communities. They would begin to build new hospitals, new schools. People would see this happening and begin to see this whole idea of a quality of life emerging from this, and it would give a vitality to the local communities. And besides that, the decisions would be made there. People would begin to be empowered to help make these decisions, and local government would become much more effective. And also, you know, the idea that this money would be spent locally by local people, and people would have an idea who was doing it well and who wasn't doing it well, so it would really begin to eliminate a lot of the fraud and a lot of the bad construction and things that are happening, because they really would have local control over it. And that doesn't make it perfect, but it does make it easier to do. And finally, I think, and the last point I want to make, is that people would begin to once again have faith in their government. Ever since the Reagan Revolution, we have been bombarded with the ideas that government is bad, that it can't do anything well, that it's inefficient, that only the private industries and private market can do well. Well, this is only because by thinking it that way, we have made it so, and we put people in who have made it so. They have not only starved the public good, but they have put people in charge of doing it that are inadequate or a bunch of political hacks, and they do it badly. So obviously it does lead to the idea that government is not good, when actually this will begin to show that government does well, it does things well. They can build beautiful schools, they can build, and it will be people will begin to see that government is not all inefficient or bad, that it is good and does good things for us. And I think that is another important aspect of this. So I believe the AMI and the Greens can work together to transform our society by transforming the way we create and spend money, by taking it out of the private realm and thus not using it for things that are not there for the public good, and putting it squarely with the government to spend on quality of life issues. We can begin to transform our society, which is part of the larger